China and India are arguably the most powerful countries in the Asia-Pacific. Although the two nations are longtime rivals, the one thing they can agree on is their interest in their comparatively small neighbor, Nepal. Both have close bilateral relations with Nepal and are crucial to the country's economy and military. But Nepal was forced to revisit its alliances in 2015, when the country enacted a new controversial constitution. So we wanted to know, just how powerful is Nepal? Well, although it's best known for the most famous mountain in the world, Mount Everest, geographically Nepal is actually fairly small. At roughly 57,000 square miles, the country is about the size of the US state of Iowa, but with 10 times the population at more than 30 million people. Nepal is one of the poorest and least developed countries in the world. About half of their population is unemployed, and roughly a quarter live below the poverty line. Its GDP of less than $20 billion means that per capita, the nation is on par with Rwanda. As a developing country, agriculture is the backbone of Nepal's economy, contributing to the livelihood of nearly 70% of the population. For the rest, Nepal relies on tourism and remittances, or people working overseas and sending their income back home. But revenue from both of these sources has plummeted since 2015, when two major earthquakes resulted in an estimated $10 billion in damage and more than 30,000 casualties. In the aftermath, tourism screeched to a halt, and many Nepalese working abroad were forced to return home to rebuild. When it comes to defense, Nepal also leaves much to be desired. With roughly 150,000 active military personnel, the country spends just over 1% of its GDP on defense. But Nepal does get considerable military backing from China and the United States, which have two of the strongest militaries in the world. This and other financial support has kept Nepal under Chinese influence, especially when it comes to neighboring Tibet, which has been seeking autonomy from China for decades. Under pressure from China, Nepal has increasingly hindered Tibetan refugees from seeking asylum in the country, and has placed new restrictions on those already living there. But Nepal is often held captive to its neighbors' demands. For instance, in 2015, India refused to recognize Nepal's new constitution and instituted a trade embargo. This forced Nepal to import more goods from China, including oil, which they have exclusively purchased from India for the last 4 decades. In early 2016, Nepal amended its constitution to appease India. However, India still has major problems with it. In the end, Nepal is still stuck between two regional powers. With little influence in the region and on the world stage, the country can really only be described as powerless. Climbing Mount Everest would be impossible without the Sherpas of Nepal to help foreign visitors make it to the top. But despite their integral role, Nepal's government is not entirely supportive. Find out why and what Sherpas have to deal with by watching this video.
The desire to conquer Everest has been on the rise ever since Sherpa Tenzing Norgay and New Zealander Edmund Hillary first summited the peak in 1953. For decades, climbing the world's tallest mountain remained the reserve for hardened explorers. But in the 1990s, advances in technology made summiting the mountain an attainable dream.
And make sure to tune into the premiere of Sherpa on the Discovery Channel, airing Saturday, April 23rd at 9/8 Central as part of Elevation Weekend on Discovery.